DuckTV Esports is proud to present a brand new League of Legends podcast. Jumping right in, here's episode 1 of Intentionally Speaking with host Jacob Thompson.
Hello everybody and welcome to Intentionally Speaking, your premier place for all things LCS and University of Oregon esports related. We have a great show today as we dive into week 1 of the LCS, present our players of the week, talk about highlights and stats, and then later we will reveal our power rankings and wrap things up thinking about week 2. Joining me on our maiden voyage.
Hi guys, my name is Drew. In-game name Sleepy Sandman. I'm a support main and I've been playing the game for the past 2-3 years now. I've invested way too many hours and am way too excited to begin this podcast with you guys. Alrighty, let's get started here. Sweet. What was your player of the week?
I have to say that actually my player of the week this week was Viper. I think Viper was actually phenomenal this weekend. Not only did he get his signature Ribbon pick, which actually I was pretty surprised about, because players that have that sort of that presence around them, sort of like Froggen with his Anivia, to me it's like when you get that champion, when they have the opportunity to play that champion, it's sort of like you have this pressure and this precedence to perform on that champion. And he did exactly that. I mean, he went 8-0-5. He had a 46% kill participation throughout the entire weekend. He was pretty much perfect in a lot of the sense of the word. He deathless throughout the weekend. And for me, seeing after his weekend with Riven, my guess is that it's going to most likely be banished back to solo queue for him, as no other team is going to want to make the same mistakes that FlyQuest did.
Yeah, and I totally agree that Viper really came out the gate to start the season. Watching, what was it? I don't even remember what map it was, but he definitely got a double kill and a solid team fight on the blue side jungle over there in the middle of the game, and he was just absolutely dominating. It was interesting last year because there was always talk about, Viper's Riven, that kind of thing, and he never really showed up unless he got his Riven. And yes, he did get his signature champ here, which is one thing to be considered. When you have Jensen on Orianna, you expect big things, but not only did he give us big things, he really kind of over exceeded this weekend, which is really impressive to watch.
For sure.
My player of the week personally is going to be Licorice. That's for several reasons. Partly I am a C9 fan, but taking that bias aside, he really in moments in games this weekend where he had early deficits due to early jungle pressure, he was able to stabilize, regain control of his lane, farm, and still have impactful presences in team fights. He had that absolutely monster 1v2 outplay underneath the turret with patience to not only not flash the Rek'Sai ult, because you can't anyway, but recognize that it's not going to be enough damage to kill me, and flash to safety under turret and still maintain the 1v2 presence in that top lane with little to no deficit there. He was able to maintain control, be impactful throughout the entire game, help manage his team, help Niski when he has advantages in team fights, as well as put pressure on the map elsewhere to draw teams out of pressure. So I think that not only did he have a resurgence in his not necessarily lackluster performance, but I would say underperformance at Worlds due to coming back from an injury, things like that, and coming back to the new season with new map changes, he really maintained his place as the best top laner, if not the best top 3 top laners in NA, which was really impactful.
With that, why don't we move into a little bit of our power rankings? Power rankings is something that I think we both enjoy. I think most people enjoy doing power rankings, and surfing the web after this last week, you can see a lot of power rankings, a lot of different people with their own opinions on power rankings.
Yeah, we see that across all sports, not even just esports.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to
everyone
predict who's going to be on top and who's going to be the bottom of the bottom of the
Exactly. Especially with this week 1 small sample size, I think that at least for me, I feel pretty confident with my power rankings. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty good with what I got.
I feel really good about my top 3, and I feel decently okay about my bottom 3. When it gets to the middle, it's kind of a free-for-all for me at this point, where it's I'm definitely going to have to get some more data from the next couple of weeks, but at least confidently I can predict my 3 finalists, I guess, for the split.
I believe that. I feel really confident with my top 3. I think I have one team that might surprise you. I think my bottom 3 is a little bit different than a lot of people have as their most bottom 3. So I'll start off here. I have my number 1 being Cloud9. think obviously they're a team that really showed up this weekend. They played, in my mind, they played the best out of most of the teams, if not all of them, for compared to everybody else, with Sven and Vulcan in the bot lane specifically having the all eyes and attention on them, with Sven filling those shoes of Sneaky. I think they played incredible that first game against TL with Niski's Veigar, which is a champion that I thoroughly hate because
I totally understand it. I think he's one of those champs that's like a very 50-50 where you love to play him but you hate to play against him,
and you could definitely see that with the Twin Shadows in the GLP build. It's not something you want to play against. It's not something that TL wanted to play against.
15 seconds stun gate is absolutely monstrous in this game. So
and I think really what is a sort of something that not a lot of people are talking about with C9 in the offseason was the fact that they no longer have this sort of looming discussion of who's our jungler. They finally committed to Blabber, and I think that's a huge thing for Niski specifically, because now he can spend his offseason focusing on one jungler rather than juggling the two, like at Worlds where Blabber hopped in and played some games. So I think C9's definitely the team on top right now. They're the team to beat. Following up with that, in my second place is Dignitas. I think a lot of people had Dignitas in their lower rankings.
See, mine, I'm like kind of in agreement with you there, but I don't know if I'd put it at second place yet. I don't know if I'm that confident, but they are in my top three.
They are,
for sure.
Dignitas is definitely an interesting team right now. Like a lot of veterans on their team, which I think brings a lot of really good mentality to their team. And seeing the post-game interviews for a lot of the players, they seem to be very happy with the current organization. A lot of the atmosphere at Dignitas is known to be more of a family organization, has a very fun background and a fun history. So I'm excited to see them and see what they do in the following weeks. They definitely have some tough matchups moving into week 2, so I think it'll be interesting to see how they stand up against more of the better known teams. And then to round out my top 3, I actually have Team Liquid, because I think a lot of people are doubting their performance out of week 1, which I think can be attributed to obviously the fact that they don't have Broxa. I think he's obviously going to be their biggest force and be their biggest impact for the team. And with them, having to play with Surenfire, who they only were able to practice with him for a couple days, I think that definitely cut into the chemistry. And I think a lot of people tend to forget Team Liquid as a whole and Team Liquid, what they've done in this past year and the team that they still are, despite the fact that they did start 1-1, had a weak performance against C9, but did manage to pull out a win against TSM on the Monday night league.
Yeah, so I'm very much in agreement with you here, like in terms of your top 3 teams. In terms of like where they sit first through third, I'm definitely very different, and that's for a couple of reasons. I actually put Team Liquid first. Okay. I definitely think they can go for the 4th split in a row, and
for sure.
I do agree they did have a weak outset on like the first weekend, but one thing I've been thinking about is they've been so dominant in the league that like it gets hard to like play your best every game at that point, when you're constantly like you're so far ahead that like to demand excellence from yourself is like a very hard thing to do, so I definitely think they have the capability to be first again. I also do totally agree that it is a big factor that Broxa is not there yet, and that totally affects team chemistry and how you're going to play, and they didn't have their like starting jungler for the season like out on the map, so like it's no surprise to me that they didn't have an out the gate stellar performance. I think it would have been more impactful and like definitely cemented like, oh, they're going to be top 1 again this year if they did, taking it like in the in adversity of those factors. But I definitely think that like it is only week 1, and as like Broxa makes his way back, as like week 2 comes and more practices occur, we're gonna see that like dominant TL like that we saw in the middle of spring season last year. Like it's just gonna come back. At least in my opinion. I put C9 2 and then Dignitas 3. I think C9 is right up there with Team Liquid. They're just missing I would say the like veteran chemistry that like Team Liquid has between like Quarter Day and Double Lift, as well as like Impact being that rock on the island that is top lane. I definitely think that like C9 has the skill level to match them. It's more just a like day by day basis. So I think that like realistically, Team Liquid's going to topple C9 in the end, but I wouldn't be surprised. So I would say those two can kind of go back or forth for me, but for the most part right now, I'm going to stick with Team Liquid on top and C9 below them. And then I put Dignitas in third, not second, because I definitely think that with the veterans that they have on their team, with the like knowledge and experience about the game, and the team chemistry that we can always see developing, I totally agree that we have not seen them tested against like the tougher teams of the league yet.
Yeah.
But their opening weekend performance was just absolutely fun to watch. It was fun to watch Afremu be impactful as he was this season and compared to like what he did last season. It was really fun to see Froggen like really command a game. Like the last couple seasons, he's been hindered by teams that, and I don't want to say hindered in the sense that like they made him worse, but like he's a top 3 mid laner in NA, but he isn't a like carry mid laner in the sense that like Bjergsen is, you know?
Exactly.
Like he doesn't have that kind of like presence on the map. However, he is still insanely good.
Exactly.
And the teams he's had in the past haven't been able to support that. So if anything, he's had to play down. And now he has a team surrounded by people that know how to play the game, have been in the league for a long time, know how to play well, and know how to work well together, you know? So like to see him with such a strong performance, especially on Orianna, like as he did this previous weekend, like I definitely see Dignitas being for sure in the top half of the table, if not a finalist contender for the end of the split.
I totally agree. Before actually we get into that, I do want to say that seeing the post-game interview with Froggen, with Travis Gafford, he definitely pointed out the fact that a lot of the teams that he's been on in NA have been teams that have been populated with a lot of rookies. And I think now having that, like you said, the veteran presence, that more like, you know, solidified team, I think that that definitely helps him. And being a mid laner, that definitely, you know, isn't one that is like a super hard carry, but when he has those resources, gets the champions that he plays and gets those leads, he can definitely capitalize it and take over games like he did this weekend.
And that's what I think the whole issue was, is he wasn't Bjergsen is the kind of guy that like, even at a disadvantage, he can turn the tide of a game, as we saw in the spring finals last year. Semifinals with the Akali game. You know, like he at a disadvantage, he can still turn things around. You know, and not that Froggen doesn't have like the mechanical capabilities to do things like that. It's just we have yet to see him do something like that. You know, we have yet to see him take his team on his back. Yeah. Despite like his agreements and saying like, yes, he's been around the rookies, he's been around people that haven't like had the same presence in the game. What I think now is like, with the people that he has by his side and like the teammates that he has that have been around the game, it just allows him to take away that pressure and frees him up to do the kind of things that he did this weekend, which is like, I'm really excited to watch. He's definitely a player I'm going to be keeping my eye out for the rest of the season.
For sure.
As we move on here, not that like I really want to talk about the middle of the table because it's really volatile and it's only week one. But in order, I would say like I did put EG and TSM in the top half of the table, so I'm going to look at it.
Okay.
Where they fall is flip-floppy. And then CLG and then FlyQuest in the bottom half.
Okay.
So that's like my middle pack. And then that's largely because TSM looked really shaky in the summer. They did not look well at Worlds. They didn't look great this opening weekend.
Okay.
I think there's definitely some behind the scenes kind of things going on between management or like stuff like that. And they either need to figure it out quickly and settle down, and then they could probably move up towards the top 3 again like they always have been.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't figure it out soon, I don't see them getting much better. From that we saw this opening weekend. CLG just kind of looked like a mess, and FlyQuest is just kind of like, I feel like they're either going to do well or not, but for my like generic opinion, I think they're going to end up in the bottom half of the table.
Okay.
My bottom 3 in order is going to end up being 100 Thieves in 8th, Immortals in 9th, and then Golden Guardians in 10th.
Okay.
100 Thieves, I was definitely a big fan from their opening season.
Yeah,
That's because like I'm a longtime Afremo fan. He's one of my favorite players to watch. Minios is a really great jungler, and their opening season with the success it had made me really excited coming into season 9. And then the mess that was last year happened, and it was just abysmal to watch. It was hard to watch. Perfect. I'm not proud to say I'm a 100 Thieves fan anymore. That's why I just sticking tried and true with C9 right now. Yeah, and even though like I think them as an organization is like really interesting and really fun to watch with Nadeshot and like all that kind of fun stuff, they just lack the synergy and team mentality and like success that we've seen them have in like the early seasons, you know. And I think like in order for them to succeed, and this is how I'm gonna kind of structure like my rankings on here, is like not so much why they're so bad, but so much like what I think they need to do to not be so bad. They definitely need to find a foothold in the league that they didn't have last year. And anyway. And then they need to like, even though they did have like strong opening performances this weekend, like they go 1-1 or
1-1.
Yeah, 1-1.
Yep.
They definitely need to like perform stronger against stronger teams. So they weren't going against top half teams, you know.
For sure.
And then like with the bot lane, Cody Sun, and I forget their sports name.
Stunt.
Okay, yeah. From other interviews and stuff, we've heard that Stunt is a very vocal person, has a very like ideological way to like play the game.
Yeah.
And so does Cody Stone. And even though they're friends, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they mingle and interact throughout the rest of the season. And that's going to definitely be a big part in their success, because I see that Under Thieves often loses games by either not having a presence in their bot lane, or they're able to win games by being able to apply pressure late in the game, which is like interesting because we don't find that in the meta these days. But like that's where 100 Thieves has found their success in the past, and I think that's going to be a large part of their success in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And that was definitely something that we saw last split as well. Something that, you know,
even though we had Bang and Aframu, it was just like they weren't performing, and it was just they weren't a detractive factor so much as they were a non-factor. And that's the other thing I want to talk about with 100 Thieves really quickly is even though some days as good as he is, I don't know if his passive play style is going to help them cement their place in the league in the same way that like Impact does. You know, like Impact is an absolute rock, and he doesn't always dominate games, but like he's very good at being passive, you know. And even though some days as good as that, it's like, how is he going to match up against Impact? How is he going to match up against Huni, you know? So like that's definitely something to look out for. I don't have too much to say about Immortals or Golden Guardians. I wasn't too excited about Immortals going into the split to begin with, and I wasn't too impressed with the opening weekend. And in terms of Golden Guardians, I definitely think that like, even though they didn't do terrible, they didn't do great. They had so many roster changes, and like they definitely need to stabilize after that and figure out what their identity is in terms of objective play. Because we saw that question last season, and we definitely saw it again this opening weekend.
Yeah. Moving on to me here. I think I pretty much agree with most of your list. I think I made my list pretty early, so I definitely think that there's some room to be changed. But what I had as my middle of the pack here, kind of just going through it quickly because that's not something that I totally agree. I think it's a very volatile state. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be swapping through here. I actually have my fourth and fifth spot, top of the middle pack here is fourth being FlyQuest, because I actually disagree with you on FlyQuest. I think FlyQuest is definitely going to be a dark horse team this year. I think FlyQuest,
I could see it, but I still don't like. I'm not ready to believe. I'm not ready to believe. I can respect your vision here, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to believe that.
With not only this performance of Viper this weekend, which I think there's no disagreeing the fact that a lot of that came from the fact that he did get Riven, and that's something that he should not have the option to have moving forward and for the rest of the split. Hopefully, I think that Santorin looked amazing this weekend. And I think part of that came down to the fact that Wiggly definitely gave maybe a little bit too much to him, and definitely seemed like Santorin took over the CLG game a little bit too hard. And I think that came down to that early level 3 where Wiggly, I'm not quite sure what he was going for, but it definitely felt like he gave Santorin a little bit too much in that early game, and then the game kind of just snowballed after that. But I definitely see FlyQuest with the acquisition of Ignar in the bot lane. He looked fantastic.
I'll definitely say that I do agree with you that he looked really good on the onset. My more reason for putting him in the bottom half of the table is, yes, Viper carried quote unquote / dominated the game, but it was again on Riven.
Exactly.
So if you take away Riven, what are we going to see?
Exactly, and I think that's going to be the big question mark. I think that's why a lot of people won't have FlyQuest higher. So I think it's definitely probably more of an overreaction to week 1, and maybe it's something that I think with power rankings and post week 1, it's something that's going to change and be very volatile. So
definitely something to look back on later.
Exactly. TSM.
Yeah, I can see a reasoning here.
I had number 5 with TSM. So TSM is a team I want to talk about for sure later, but I actually think TSM is a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for at the moment. I think the team that they have right now, I think, is definitely a team kind of in the same sense of FlyQuest, where you can see the vision of them really performing, really doing really just changing the story that's been their storyline the past few years, or the past few splits. So I'm really hopeful for that team, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do. And then with the 6th and 7th spot, 6 being EG, Evil Geniuses, I wasn't really impressed with this weekend. I wasn't impressed with Svenskeren. I was not impressed with Kumo. And I think Zazul and Bang, I think, is definitely going to be an interesting combination. Bang and Aframu wasn't a comp that really worked that well together. And hopefully Zazul and Bang can kind of figure something out to make them be a little more successful than Bang was with Aframu. But I think Evil Genius is a team that it looks good now, or somewhat now, but I'm not feeling too confident with.
Okay.
And then at 7, I had Immortals. I think Immortals is a really interesting team because I think they're playing a team with no expectations right now. I think Cloud9, Team Liquid, TSM, these are teams that have this expectation to perform, expectation to be excellent because of past success. And Immortals has been successful in the past in history of LCS. And I think now
Makes sense, but,
I think that right now that they're just a team that is still sort of in the same way of that Golden Guardians is. I think they're still trying to figure out their identity, trying to figure out who they are and what they're going to be able to do. And I think that they're a team that has some potential to be successful this split, but definitely not a team that I see moving far into the playoffs.
Okay. You're putting them in 7th?
Yeah, 7th.
Okay, cool. And
then my bottom 3 is actually 100 Thieves at 8. I pretty much agree with you in every single statement about 100 Thieves. I think, with Cody Sun and Stunt in the bot lane, I think that's definitely something that will be interesting, and I hope that they can be a little bit more disruptive in games and force a little more attention towards them, because in past history with Aftermoon Bang, it's definitely not something 100 Thieves has not found success in the bot lane. That's something that needs to be seen. The first game with Meteos, definitely a little shaky. I don't know exactly what that was about. It definitely seemed like he had a really tough time adjusting to the game, and I don't know I don't know exactly what that is. I don't know what the comms were like, but except for I think it was a Elder Dragon Steel or just a Dragon Steel for a soul. I don't remember, but he did somehow manage to pull that off, which was a turning point in the game for them.
Yeah, it was a Drag Steel. I just don't remember if it was Elder or Soul.
I don't remember which one it was. But so being a 100 Thieves fan, repping the colors, I bought a jersey, or I got a jersey over Christmas. I'm excited to see them. I want to see them find success, so I'm hopeful for them. But right now, I definitely got to keep things realistic, and I have them on the lower half of my table.
I definitely think, I guess in terms of how my table worked out, is it just went from least variables to success to most variables to success, and that's just my big thing. 100 Thieves is I definitely.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't impressed this past weekend. I haven't been impressed the last 2 splits, and I want them to succeed because I like what they are as an organization, and I like their mentality as an organization, and that kind of thing. I really want to see the success from them, but until we see those variables decrease, it's gonna be hard to expect more from them,
So I think definitely there's some room to be excited about, but I definitely agree that right now it does not really feel like there's enough to see them have a whole lot of success. My 9th place, I have CLG. I think right now, this is definitely something that will change over time, me having CLG at 9. I don't think that's probably where they deserve. I know Crown I know Crown had a lot of problems with visa issues that restricted their ability to boot camp and to practice and to really get that synergy down. And with Wiggly's performance against FlyQuest, which I mean, it just didn't really feel like him after seeing them last split.
He seemed very much instead of last split, he was very a pro factor, and I was just kind of an in effector.
Exactly. So I'm interested to see how they transition after this week. I mean, it is week 1. Things are shaky. Things are new. The Rift has changed so much since last split. With the changes to the Dragons, changes to the double Rift Heralds, that's something that is going to be a huge factor moving into the rest of this.
Definitely something I want to talk to you about here later. But
so that's something that I think is going to change a lot of the teams' mentalities moving forward, and I think some teams have already adjusted to that really well, and I think some teams still have to find that adjustments and make the changes that are necessary to find success in this current iteration of the Rift. And then to wrap up my power rankings here,
Golden Guardians.
Yep. Obviously. I'm really rooting for Golden Glow. I think I really do believe he deserves an opportunity to get his chance starting. I really think that he deserves a better team than Golden Guardians gave him, because I feel like that he is a very strong mid laner. He's got history in the LCS.
He's straight NA, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And, I personally am somebody that really roots for North American talent. And, with him being the only North American mid laner this split, it's definitely somewhat of a disappointment. So I'm really hopeful for Golden Guardians in the future to really find their footing, find their identity. But right now, I'm not really seeing it. With bot lane, with Keith role swapping, role swapping is difficult at any time and at any stage of the game, whenever you're trying to play. So it's something that definitely felt. And then with FBI, their synergy felt a little shaky. I saw a lot of times where a lot of people actually were ripping on Keith in some of the games because of his stat line. I think he died 5 times against Cloud9. but a lot of those times was FBI's positioning and Keith jumping in to try to save him. And that's something to be somewhat mindful of. I know in my personal experience in my games, I find myself wanting to argue with my teammates like, this is not okay, I'm trying to do something here, I'm trying to save my teammates, I'm trying to save you, you're the one out of position. So
I definitely think like that's a really questionable like just support thing in general, and as someone that like vividly plays support, like avidly plays support as a support main, like I definitely run that same dilemma where like in some cases it's worth dying to keep your ADC alive, but in other cases like it's not, and that was definitely like a question thing. But at the same time, like he didn't do terrible, you know? And for a role swap and coming out the first weekend to not do like absolutely abysmal, I think that's definitely something to be noted. And like moving forward, we could definitely see him improve, and it'd be interesting to see how they affect the bot lane throughout the rest of the split.
I'm hopeful, and I want to see them. I want to see them succeed. I want to see all teams succeed in the LCS. So they're definitely a team that I want to root for, but like the rest of the teams, at least, well, probably not CLG, but like 100 Thieves, I think that they're definitely they're moving towards the right direction. Like with 100 Thieves, kind of going back to them, I think they definitely with Papa Smithy hopping in as manager, I think they definitely made the right decisions with the team, with the organization, what was necessary to find success in that team. And I'm hopeful that Golden Guardians can kind of follow that and at least try to shift their narrative, shift their play style, shift what makes them, and then see if they can find success in different ways.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it shakes out. I very much disagree with a lot of your like opinions about TSM. That's because I've never been a big TSM fan to begin with.
Well, to be fair, I'm not a huge TSM fan either. But.
Yeah, it's like last spring they were definitely a completely different team.
Exactly.
And like I haven't seen that team since last spring. Yeah. And like I was hoping I'd see like glimpses of it this weekend, and I didn't see it. And it's a question of like, I do think they could like make their way into like a playoff contention spot, but they need to figure out what's going on with their team first, and they're in a spot where they really haven't. And definitely do want to hear like your other remarks you have about them really fast.
Because I do, I have a few. So here's a few things. So to start off, I think definitely something to be somewhat aware of is the fact that I think it was in between summer and spring, there was Bjergsen got his new big offer, his new big contract, which gave him a lot of. I believe he's a
part
owner, right?
Yeah, he's a part owner now.
So, I think being a part owner brings a lot of different sort of expectations to Bjergsen. I think for him, he definitely wants to perform. Obviously, he still wants to play at the top level. He still wants to be the best team. I think TSM. I think they all have that mindset. So I think for him, definitely the pressure to perform is definitely there. It's definitely, I think, ever present and getting bigger. And so I think for him, I truly believe that this split is going to be changing it for him. I think he's going to be game changing. I think he's really going to shine this split. I think this weekend was really tough because he was sick. That was something that they were talking about.
Yeah, which is always unfortunate.
And and you could see that in the second game for sure. I mean, Zillion is a pick for him that he's been historically pretty popular on and very successful on. And it felt like almost that he wasn't there. He wasn't at the keyboard.
Yeah, there was a lot of debate on Reddit about that and how he had a questionable delay in ulti, and he was defended by saying he was chain TC'd, but if you actually watch the replay, he had about 2 to 3 seconds to work with there. We're going to pop his delay in ulti, and
so like, I don't want to blame their losses on that, but that definitely brings somewhat.
No, it was definitely a factor, and like I think that's a good thing to like remember and like bring back to like this whole conversation here is that like it is only the opening weekend.
Exactly,
it's just like that whole like there's teams that have a lot of variables and there are teams that don't have a lot of variables, and like TSM has a lot more variables now than you would normally expect from them going into the split.
Exactly, and so kind of continuing here with TSM, so an interesting stat that I read on after this opening weekend was the goal differential at 15 minutes for all the teams, and TSM led the pack with 1900 going into 15 minutes, which is a stat line that is very interesting. That's number one in the league. So theoretically saying at 15 minutes, TSM is leading the game with a very strong lead.
You said 1900 though?
Yeah, 1900.
I mean, that's okay. So it's definitely like half items, or like our full items.
It's like a half item, yeah.
But like that's like it's questionable. Like that's always like been a questionable stat line for me.
Exactly.
Where it's like I consider it significant when you're winning when it's like 2,500 or more, because at that point you have a snowball lead that you can press and shove down a team's throats. When it's less than 2,000, and this is just like a personal taste for me, like it's definitely still significant, but at like less than 2,000, it's like manageable for a team to stall and get back into the game, because at like later as we hit like the 35-40 minute mark, goal differential isn't a factor.
And I think to be fair, like I totally agree with you. I don't think it's a stat line that's really like shocking and out there, but I think it's definitely something to be considering, especially with the fact that TSM and a lot of power rankings that I saw have them at zero, have at 10th, the low, at the very.
I don't
bottom.
think they're a 10th team.
I don't think they're a 10th team, and this is definitely shows that they're
could see them in the bottom of the table, but they're not a 10th team.
There's definitely
no
they have some there's definitely stats showing after week 1 that does show some glimpses of hope and some things that they can be excited about. But to be fair, I want to make sure that that definitely gets clear that the stat line does somewhat get inflated because of that first game.
Which
first
makes
game,
sense,
they against Immortals, which will go down in history as one of the most infuriating,
terrible
week
games.
1
That
games.
was miserable. I picked like I didn't have time to watch all the games, but I watched that one. I watched C9's second game, and I watched one of the Dignitas games. I don't remember if it was their first or second day, but I was sad that I watched that game.
Yeah, that game was. It
was abysmal.
That game was just not something that I think anybody really wanted to watch, and so that game was really different. I think that definitely inflated the stat line, because if you look at that game compared to TL, they had, I think it was a plus 2,000 against Immortals, and then I think somewhere around the 900s against TL, which, as you were saying, 2,500 plus is something much more significant than 1,900, and 900 obviously is essentially non-existent.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind when looking at that stat line, and not to get too excited. But when I think about TSM, and I really, after experiencing this new season so far, this season has felt very early game oriented. Whether you want to focus on dragons, to focus on later in the game, or if you want to focus on taking plates and getting that early snowball gold lead. And I think with the acquisition of Dardoch, I think that really opens the gate for them to take games and really control them early. And I think, to be fair, I think we did see that, especially in that first game against Immortals. I think that's something to be really considerate of, is the fact that they have the team, I think, to be really successful in this season, specifically with the dragon changes and the rift changes. And I think that if they can figure out how to transition into the mid to late game, I think we're going to see a very successful team in TSM, and not to mention the fact that they are a team that's very well versed in playoffs and later in the season.
So, fun question I want to pose to you here: do you think TSM, as we see the season progress, are they going to funnel more gold towards Bjergsen or Broken Blade?
That's a really interesting question, actually. I think, I honestly think that's going to change depending on patches and nerfs. I do think that I would like to see. Yeah. I would like to see more gold go towards Broken Blade, because, and at least in my experience,
he is so fun to watch.
He is a fantastic guy, and he's a fantastic, he's a fantastic streamer. He's a fantastic personality. He's a fantastic player. I would love to see him take more control of the game, because, like you were saying earlier with Bjergsen, he's a player that even if he doesn't have those resources, he's still going to make plays. He's still going to have an impact. And if you can spread out and diversify a lot of that resources, then you're going to be more successful. And especially with the rift change, with the double rifts, I think that's something for me, at least in my personal experience with my games, is that whenever you can take 2 rift heralds in a game, it's game changing, because those early turrets are going down. You're getting those plates. That's a lot of gold going towards your team. And I think, like I was saying earlier, with Dardoch being a very aggressive early game jungler, I think that's something that we're going to see more of with TSM, and I'm hoping to see them be more successful at moving forward.
That's definitely something I also want to talk to you about. I was curious, what were your thoughts? And it's interesting, because before this I didn't know we were both support mains, but map changes are even though they're most impactful for the jungle role, they're secondarily, I think, most impactful for us, because we're responsible for vision control and just general map control presence over the entire map. How do you feel about the season 10 map /dragon changes?
I will say that I think the biggest change for me has been the way the map changes based on what dragon is spawning. Cloud Drake specifically, because more bushes spawns, more places to ward, more places
Ocean
to
Drake,
hide.
right?
Ocean Drake,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Cloud Drake's easily the worst, but it's fine.
So I will say that I'm not a huge fan of the Ocean Drake because of that. Especially, it creates too many opportunities, at least in my mind, or at least from my experience, because the 80 carries that I've played with recently have been very like there's no possible way anything could be in the brushes, right? There's no one's
you
there.
just walk in blind, yeah.
Walk in, face checks,
low yellow, just it's like I
Exactly.
definitely it's interesting because I like the ocean map change. I like how I don't obviously like how like it changes how like as a team you have to ward differently, and that's really hard to do in solo queue.
Especially the dragon pit with the extra.
It's like really hard to do in a solo queue situation where you can't like on comms talk to people about where you're gonna ward and where you need them to ward, But like I think it's really interesting in terms of like 50-50 decisions have what made the game so fun to play and so fun to watch in like the last 2 to 3 years, and they just like made it even more even. They were like, you know what, screw you, you can't look at the map at all. You just have to walk everywhere blind, and like
that's
it sucks. It sucks when like you die or like your teammate dies, but like it also is really fun to like catch someone, and like
for sure.
I really like that about Ocean Drake.
Yeah,
I definitely think for the champions I play, like I'm most impacted by Infernal and Mountain Drake, because I'm a Thresh and like Bard main, that like Bard is a lot of roaming around the map, and some of the routes I would take with portals and that kind of stuff are now changed when Inferno's gone, because like half the wall's gone, so like I'm slowed down that way, that kind of thing.
Terrible.
I definitely don't like Cloud Drake. I think that it's only helpful for full team rotations if you have like a 1-3-1 kind of comp, and you never see that nowadays because team fights are just so powerful later in the game that like it's really hard to pull that kind of thing off. And Mountain Drake, it's like I think it's more annoying than anything. I don't like it's hard to find helpful for me. I think like if you play a lot of like terrain based champions like Anivia and that kind of thing, like you can just get a lot of use out of it, but I don't know, I personally don't think like that. I definitely am not. I understand how they diverted the power of like early dragons, and like I'm all for that, but I was also wondering, like, what do you think? I guess it depends on like the matchups and that kind of thing, but like what do you think is the most impactful soul to have later in the game?
Ocean, 100%.
Ocean,
100%. I mean, the regen on Ocean is just, it hurts, especially when the other team has it.
But my whole thing on that is, I personally think my favorite's Infernal, and that's just like dealing damage.
That's
is fun,
definitely more fun.
For
sure.
And like I don't want to say that like the healing isn't fun for Ocean. I think like for both sides, it's a very comp based kind of thing.
Exactly.
So like Ocean Drakes like are really good for like heavily defensive teams that can't poke people out, because then they can actually run in and like sustain themselves. But like Inferno's so good, like if you're playing like Ryze or like Caitlyn or like Jinx, like you can just like bounce that burn damage in there, and that's just like really fun to watch. The other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, not just map changes, but was the meta changes. So right now we've seen in Pro Prey a lot of I looked at all the pick ban phases for the weekend, and we saw a 100% ban rate for Akali.
I 100% agree with that.
Even though she's been nerfed consistently, and she's getting nerfed again next patch, which I have a friend that's in Akali main, and like I just permanently cry for him. Feels bad, man.
I pour one out, but I will say that I like the game better without that champ.
I personally don't. I think she's really fun to watch. And then Kiana, which is like not too surprising. But she was permanent banned throughout the weekend as well. We also saw 100% presence of Lucian and Rumble in pick ban phase. So they were either, I think, mostly banned, but if they weren't banned, they were picked, and they ended up in the top lane. And then the ADC lineups tend to be very consistent right now. So we've only seen 3 ADCs. We've seen Aphelios, Senna, and Xayah. And what's the interesting commonality between all 3 of them is they're all very safe. They only and they all supposedly have infinite scaling in a way, I guess. Not, I guess Xayah's isn't infinite, but the crit, the thought, is insane, What do you think needs to be changed in terms of meta strength to see a greater diversity in Chample? Because I don't want to watch another spring split as we saw in the Worlds with those just Xayah or Kai'Sa, I don't want to watch the same 3 champs throughout the.
I think honestly what it comes down to is the support meta. I think the support meta is so impactful with AD meta. And I think the reason why a lot of the supports right now are very safe is because of the engaged support meta right now, with Nautilus being, forefronting that, Leona being another one, and Blitzcrank even, who actually showed up, which I was surprised about because it's usually not a champion that we see in the LCS. But I think that, Nautilus is getting nerfed this patch. I don't know, is Leona getting nerfed?
I think she is, but it's not notable.
I think that definitely, for me at least in my eyes, is the biggest impact, because especially personally with my games, playing as playmaking champs, hook champs, that's something that, it's so easy to turn a laning phase and take a lead, start snowballing with a champion like that, because one misstep like that, and then what follows with those champions is we see Tahm Kench. Obviously, he's a champion that has taken over pro play for the last few years, and is someone that we see consistently because of his essentially is just a cleanse for your AD carry. Which
he was definitely an off, like he was a quote unquote pocket pick for me for a really long time, for a couple months, and like I personally was really sad when he received the nerfs that he did.
Exactly.
Like, was it early last season?
He's
now just
well.
like you can't, like you're grounded when you have someone in you, and it's just like. Yes, he did have too much utility in his kit, I guess, but like I don't know, like I'm both excited and torn to see him back again. I'm excited to see him again because he's really fun to play and he can be fun to watch, but I'm torn because like he's not going to be as nearly impactful as he was, except for in terms of map presence with his ultimate, which is like going to be kind of like. And I hope it fades out here, or they give him more of that power that he once used to have, because that was why it was fun to watch, and that's why it was fun to play Tahm Kench in the bottom.
And I will say that I don't think he's as exciting to watch or play right now, especially with the changes to his Q. Not getting the passive stack. I think is something that was changed. I think mostly in part for top lane.
Yeah. Because nerf is solo lane power,
which hurt, because that was actually my top lane pocket pick. I used to love playing Tahm Kench top.
I hated watching it, like because I'd be sitting in the bot lane and I'd like pan my camera up top and it'd just be like
a mess.
An absolute monster, and my like top laner would be getting dumpstered, and I'd be like, bro, like. This is stupid, and like I can't get mad at him because it's like it's not his fault. It's just like it was just impossible.
It's just
like, you know what? All right, cool.
So I definitely think that with him coming back, I think it's funny because I think he's one of the champions like Callista and Rise that really have this pro presence. And I think Tahm Kench is now becoming one of those. And
that whole like what was it? Rise, Callista, Azir.
Azir is on one.
Yeah.
The champions that just have too much for pros to use and takes over games, takes over metas. I will say that I'm actually a huge fan of Senna being AD carry. I know that she's getting nerfs.
I'm not a fan of her being AD carry, and I'm excited that she's getting nerfs for AD carry, because it's not. I'm a fan of like watching, and like. I like playing her, but I will only ever play her as support. I don't think she has the damage output enough in the game, and even the late game, it's just like, she can like someone's at half health, and yes, she can pop them, but then like it's like it's not fun to watch. Like what was it? I watched was it Bang almost got a quadra kill, and it was just like if you weren't really paying attention, you wouldn't have even noticed. Sure. Whereas like we like if you were to watch like a Jinx pop off or like a Xayah pop off or like even like a Caitlyn with like headshot damage, like you can like notice it, and it's like, oh my god, they're dealing damage. But Senna is just kind of like she's in the back,
She's back,
like,
and I think
poke,
a lot of her power comes from the fact that she can utilize Glacial Augment so well.
That's I figured that out like 2 weeks ago, and she has been so much more fun to play because I couldn't figure out a rune set for her, and I was like, oh, Glacial Augment is absolutely disgusting because it allows her to get her passive proc.
I have a really weird thing with Glacial Augment because I used to use Glacial Augment with Tahm Kench a lot in the bot lane because
I do Glacial Augment with Tahm Kench and Shen when Shen was in the support meta.
Man, I will say that Glacial Augment is just such a it's a rune that
no one knows
about.
Yeah.
It's so unknown but so impactful. And I think Senna especially really can utilize it so well with especially with her range scaling.
Yeah.
And I think any champion that has a really powerful damage output on top of the fact that she gives you constant slows and can poke you from a backline is the champion that we will see in the LCS, and I think she's going to stick around whether it's in a support role or an AD role.
What's the thing? I don't mind if she sticks around, but I definitely I want to see her in that support role. As we like start to close up here, I do want to ask: do you have any like over predictions here for like the rest of the season? Like absolutely wild. Like they don't like. I have like a couple fun ones.
Okay, I definitely think I'll try to do two here. I'll try to do one that's more like
realistic and realistic. Okay, cool.
I will say that I think for a more realistic one, I'm gonna go with a. Dignitas being in the Final Four.
That was my realistic one. Actually,
That's realistic.
Yeah, that's my realistic
okay.
one. Okay.
I think a lot of people can agree with that. I think that's something that I think.
Wait, did you say Final Four?
Final Four.
Yeah. Mine is my realistic is they win.
Is they win?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see them winning
Yeah,
the split.
I can do that as well.
That's I'm gonna throw out Dignitas wins the split.
Dignitas wins the split. I will say that they definitely have that presence now, especially after this first week, saying like, okay, like guys, this team is real. Like they're, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of questions about them, and they came out and they outperformed pretty much everybody. And
okay. What about your crazy one?
Crazy one? Oh gosh, you go first because I still gotta kind of like create it in my mind because I have a couple ideas, but just you go first for your fun one.
Okay. I think that we are going to see Huni essentially dominate the top lane. He's gonna like surpass Licorice. That's my crazy one. As I feel like the way the meta's suited now, as well as like the roster changes that he has on his team, I feel like that he's gonna become that dominant force that he once was, and that we haven't seen from him the past couple of years, especially with their team playing to the top side and mid lane. Like he is going to dominate games as the split moves on.
All right, I kind of have two here. I think my first one is that I'm going to say that Greg is going to get benched for Acadian, and we're going to see the Greg Acadian struggle.
You're a madman, and I appreciate
in
it.
Dignitas again, because I will say I don't know if you've watched any Dignitas's academy games. That team should not be an academy team, and that's actually something that I hope we can talk about in future episodes.
Yeah, definitely should talk about
academy teams, and it's just the whole academy format is something that I'm not a huge fan of, and I think it's something that they can really amplify to be more impactful on not only the amateur scene and aspiring players, but just more entertaining to watch, because Dignitas is just sweeping academy games.
So I definitely have a lot of thoughts about that, but I'm gonna definitely save them for next week. So
okay.
I've been thinking about that as well.
And then my fun one is, my prediction is that we're going to see. I'm trying to think of a way to word this. I think we're going to see a huge change in the bot lane for the champions that we see, because I think it seems like we're seeing a lot of really tough nerfs in the upcoming patches here, specifically Senna AD carry, and it's nice to see that they are focusing on Senna as an AD carry, and they're focusing the nerfs towards that. So I think we're going to see a really weird shift, and I think we're going to see Senna more as a support if they're still going to be played, and if Senna starts playing support, that's really going to start changing the meta in my mind for what we'll see in the bot lane.
Yeah, I think if they can fully cement Senna as a support position, we're going to have the resurgence of the mage support bot lane, which is going to be like
the mage support bot lane.
I can see this.
Imagining.
Yeah, I can see this over prediction here coming into reality.
So,
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up here?
I think that's pretty much it. I think we pretty much hit our time here. I just want to say thank you again for coming on for this inaugural episode of Intentionally Speaking.
I definitely don't plan on leaving. So
exactly. Hope to have you back, and we can have more conversations like this, because I want to see us have more episodes of talking about LCS, but also just the fact that we're here at the University of Oregon and we have a League of Legends team here. And we'd love to see them and focus on them, because they are a wonderful team. They're a wonderful group of guys that deserve the time and respect of us taking them into consideration.
I totally agree here.
And with that, that'll be it from us here today. Thank you all to those listening and watching. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at UO Esports and at UO DuckTV on Instagram. And good luck to everybody fighting midterms right now. I know we sadly weren't able to be joined by our good friend Nick, who is currently fighting the midterm bug. And do you have any last closing statements, Drew?
Nerfs and AD. I'm watching. I can't watch it anymore. It's not fun.
I agree with that. I hope to see 100 Thieves pull out a win this weekend, because I need a reason to wear my 100 Thieves jersey. And after Monday Night League, definitely not. It definitely went back into the closet.